Hello and welcome to another episode of the Finding Serenity in the Midst of Chaos podcast. Today we are going to talk about imposter syndrome. Specifically, how can you get rid of imposter syndrome? But first of all, I'm going to talk about what is imposter syndrome, what are the symptoms, and what can you do to get rid of it. So stay tuned. Hi, Ian. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. I am Ian Fleming. I am the real Ian Fleming. Hello.
Here's the role play. Here comes the role play.
I had to think about that for a minute. Yeah.
You did, didn't you? Yes.
Imposter syndrome. This is it. This is interesting. No, I am the real person. You can tell now.
I
And
can
if people
definitely
watching for the
tell.
first time, I think, oh my goodness. No, it's all right.
Well,
Please stay tuned. I just, as Chulai says, like to have a
role
little
play.
dramatic impersonation of the topic if I can. Doesn't always work.
It doesn't. Well, you know what? There is no mistaking you, Ian. There will be no one other like you.
Well, I'm glad to
And
hear it.
that's a good, but that applies to all of us. And I guess it's
Yeah,
it's
I
a
think so.
it's a great way to introduce the topic, in fact. So what is imposter syndrome? And imposter syndrome is basically someone to be convinced that they are not the real thing and they are not as clever as they or intelligent as they make out to be, or if you're feeling like a fraud, that
Hmm.
who am I to do this? Am I cut out to do this? Am I the right person? All of this sort of stuff. If you're really having these doubts, that's the
Right.
imposter syndrome. Make
Okay.
sense?
Okay. Now that's interesting because I mean, I'll just say what I thought. We haven't discussed this beforehand. This is
No.
completely as it comes, as we
Yes.
always do.
Sure.
I thought it was trying to be something that you're not. Trying to just live your life, looking at what everybody else does, and trying to sort of just be like they are, really, and
Yeah,
not
that's what an
yourself.
imposter is.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
the true meaning of an imposter, I guess,
All
is
right. All
being
right.
someone that you're not. But
Yeah.
imposter syndrome, if you're feeling it, if you're a ambitious woman like the kind of people that I work with,
Yeah.
and you're in a new position, you're in a new place where you started to feel a little bit out of your, depth, if you like, you
Mm.
start to feel, well, am I cut out to do this? And who am I to do this? Who gives me the right to do this? Am I good enough to do all of this?
Yeah.
You'll start to feel these feelings of feeling like an imposter.
Right. So you're feeling like an imposter
Yeah.
yourself in the
Yes.
situation that you're in
Yes. And
because
all
you're
of
out your
this
depth and
self
you're
doubt.
not bringing yourself to it in a sense, or you don't
Hmm.
feel quite right about. So it's not quite you, I suppose.
Well, it feels like you are not enough to do
I
what
see.
you are to do here.
Right. So
And
it's more the lack.
it's more the lack, and you start to question your worthiness, your value that you bring, and you doubt yourself. Basically, your self doubt creeps in.
Right. Okay,
Uh,
that makes sense. I
yeah,
get it now. Yeah, imposter syndrome. That adds up. Yeah.
yes. The very clear distinguishing thing here also is that we all have sometimes, dipping confidence. We all have some sort of doubt occasionally, but
Yeah.
this isn't necessarily referring to that. Imposter syndrome is constant self doubt, not valuing yourself, and always like questioning everything that you do,
Yeah.
and then living your life in order to prove to others that
Mm.
you are worthy of the position that you're
Mm.
in a way. But it almost like it becomes a way of living, and so you kind of uh, just like we talked about in burnout, it becomes your way of life and you think this
Yes.
is normal, but of
Mm.
course it isn't. It is
Mm.
something that it becomes almost an identity trait of doubting yourself all the time, you
Yeah.
know and sometimes
Well.
people might think also there's another part of it, is that you get the success that you deserve, but then you
Yep.
just undermine that. You don't celebrate it, and you say to people, well, you know what, I was at the right place at the right time, I was just lucky, and all this sort of stuff. So you're not really, because you don't believe that you're worthy and deserving of the success that you have, you're constantly underplaying it. And we kind of alluded to this in many episodes before. It was just like not celebrating the success that you have, and moving to the next one, because you're, subconsciously you're trying to prove your worthiness to everybody else, whilst believing that you're not worthy of and deserving of the success that you're getting. Does that make sense?
It does, and you can just see this pattern repeating and repeating. And if that's allowed to continue, nothing ever gets any better, and you never get to feel that whatever you're trying to satisfy in yourself, you just don't do it. It doesn't ever arrive, does it? You don't get there because. Yeah, it is. I remember looking after a little boy, and we went on a bike ride. It was some kind of thing where we had to go to different checkpoints and then sign in and whatever. And he was, "Where are we going next? Where are we going next?" Not, "Oh, look, there's some nice, even, there's nice sweets and cakes here that we can enjoy. Look, that for people doing this bike ride." And it's always, and I always think of that. It's just a silly little illustration, really. That was
but
just
it's
a little 3-year-old on the back of my bike. But it wasn't Daniel. This was somebody else's child that came with us. We were just looking after him for the day. But it was. Well, it's always stuck with me. How we're always after the next and
thing.
never quite get the present. That's very important. Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly it. And especially this becomes even more exaggerated when you're in a new job and you're in a big new achievement, if you like, and you're receiving an award and a promotion, especially you're a bit of an introvert and whatever, you just don't, take that moment in and enjoy that moment like you just explained, because you don't feel that you deserve it.
Yes, you interesting word there, introvert. Yeah, we don't all like the limelight, do we? We don't all want to be the center of attraction, whatever. But that shouldn't stop you from celebrating. I mean, celebrating quietly with your family and friends or whatever. It's not on the stage with all the lights on you, is it? Look at me type thing. You can celebrate in quieter ways that are suitable for your personality, surely.
Yes, exactly. I mean, everyone is different. We don't need to necessarily all be out and, jumping up and down with joy with every time, and we got to embrace our differences. So, exactly. And so
I just thought I'd throw that one in because, some people, well, that's why I don't celebrate, because I don't want to make a big deal. I don't want people staring at me. I don't like surprise.
That assumes that celebration means it all has to be a big dance and party and whatever. It could be anything. Celebration could be that you give yourself a pat on the back, or you buy yourself a book, or I don't know, you spend your time with your family, whatever it might be. Celebration for you, it could be a whole different thing. But yes,
I just wanted to bring that out in case people think, well, no, I'm not going. It's not me. I'm not going to celebrate. But we can all celebrate in a way suitable for our own characters.
Yes. So
okay.
So what are the symptoms of imposter syndrome? In fact, when we go through these, our listeners and watchers will recognize some of the subjects that we've talked about in the past weeks, bringing their ugly head, as it were, still in this, because that's part of the symptoms of having the imposter syndrome in your life all the time. Feeling inadequate and doubting yourself, doubting your every move, doubting your every decision. This is why constantly looking outside of yourself to getting other people's input to be able to make a decision in anything, because you don't feel good enough or adequate enough to make that decision yourself, or you don't feel deserving of the success, and you always feel like it doesn't come. What if it doesn't come? It's always this doubt, constant doubt in your mind. The other symptom is exhibiting perfectionist tendencies. Like one of my clients, she literally described herself as a perfectionist. And why? Because she had to constantly make everything perfect in order to prove that she was worthy of the place that she was in. She almost described to me as she was trying to prove her legitimacy to the people around her, because she didn't believe that she was legitimate enough. And that's obviously, we've overcome that working together. But if you don't believe you're legitimate, you're going to constantly make everything perfect to make others believe that you are legitimate and you're perfect. But as we know, perfection is an illusion anyway, because everybody's
Yeah,
ideal
yeah, we've
perfect
talked
is
about that.
different, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've also said it 1,000 times as well. Don't let perfect get in the way of better. You know, I
Yeah.
can't be perfect, so I'm not going to try to make anything better, because if it's not perfect, it's not good enough. So I'm not going to buy. Oh,
Yeah.
a spiraling, descending circle. Yeah. It's,
That's right.
yeah.
And
Yeah. Perfects are terrible. Yeah. Perfect. Who's perfect?
what's
What perfect?
perfect?
Yeah. We
Yeah.
can. Yeah. Let's park that one.
Yes. And then the number three is avoiding responsibility. That's another symptom. And we've touched on this before in a different way when we said, I don't have time for this. You're keeping yourself busy with other things, but you're avoiding responsibility on the things that really matter, that are really important, by keeping yourself busy, because you know when you face that thing, it's going to mean you're going to have to deal with something really difficult or whatever, and it's going to show you things that you don't want to see necessarily. So say taking on responsibility is a difficult one in this way, because when you do, you still feel like an imposter, because then avoiding responsibility keeps you safe.
Uh-huh.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
If you take on a new job or a new big responsibility, which means you're still gonna feel even more not worthy and deserving, even more doubtful, and even more like a fraud, and your brain is trying to keep you safe by avoiding that extra responsibility, and just you then keep yourself busy with other things instead, which of course eventually leads to you being completely in misalignment with what you want to do in the world, and misalignment in yourself. That's a whole another can of worms that we don't want to open here, but that's
Sure.
something to recognize. And fearing judgments of and discovery judgment from others. We spoke about this before. Other people's judgments on you means nothing about you, it's about them. But if we are suffering from the imposter syndrome, we take it upon ourselves that what if they find out, what if I'm found out I'm an imposter, I'm a fraud anyway, if that's how you're thinking.
Yeah.
What if they find out? What if they what if everybody judges me? And that everybody's judging you anyway all day long. That's one thing. But that's the if you're in the fear and really overwhelming thoughts
Yes.
along these lines, that's essentially what
Yeah.
that's essentially what it's coming from. But then what happens to compensate for this? What do? We constantly seek for approval and validation from others. And when we don't get that validation from others, we just basically, well, you see, I told you already, they were going to find out. They found out now.
Oh,
That's kind of, it's a really, really bad state of mind to be at. Extreme
yes.
cases it can
Yeah.
get into this, but of course we don't want our listeners to be ever in this position. This is
No,
why
and
we're
we should
covering this.
say,
Yeah.
look, if that does resonate with you, now, in the next few minutes, we're going to see how to deal with this and how to get you out of it. And it's not bad that you've ended up like this. It's just, you haven't been aware, you haven't thought, you haven't, like July and I, we talk through these things and we focus on these things. And, the average person, perhaps, somebody watching this for the first time probably doesn't know. One of the other things, just before we go on to mention, and I mentioned this a few weeks ago when you did the 4 things that I'd learned working with you episode, which I hope people have listened to. That was putting me on the spot there, is that what other people think of you is none of your business. Hopefully that's something that I said back then. If it isn't, then I'm adding it on now.
You did, for sure.
One of
Yeah.
the things that I've learned that's very powerful. It's none of, to actually say to somebody, just, in your head, not out loud necessarily, but think, it's none of my business what you think of me. In other words, I'm not going to change my behavior and personality because of what you think. And, it's easy to do, isn't it? It's easy a trap to
It is.
fall
And
into,
in
I
fact,
think.
it's funny because there was a reel I was watching on social media. Is the professor shows a $20 bill, asks the students how much this is worth. Is $20, and then he just crumbles it in his hand. How much is worth? $20. He puts it on the floor, steps on it, stomps on it a few times. How much is it worth now? It's $20. Here you go. Here's an example. No matter how much people put you down, no matter what they do to you, your worth doesn't change.
Brilliant. I love it. That's a good
That's a
one.
really great demonstration that your
Mm.
worth does not depend on what other people do or don't do or whatever, and what they say. It's only their actions relate to what they do. So this is a great example then to understand our self-worth has nothing to do with other people, and therefore if you're living your life fear of judgment of others, it is a prison you've created for yourself, and hopefully we're going to get you out of there soon enough.
Right. We're going to
So
give the keys to let
yes.
yourself out. Here we
Yes.
go.
And
Jangle,
before we
jangle.
do that, there's one more thing, denying
Oh,
your own success, which we mentioned earlier as
okay.
well.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, downplaying all the achievement, downplaying all the success that we have because, oh, you know what, it was nothing and I was just lucky and, you know, whatever. So all of that
Yeah.
downplaying and not celebrating, these are all the symptoms of if you're experiencing imposter syndrome. Like I said, having some fear or low in confidence moments open to all of us. We all have those moments,
Yeah.
but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about where we have these symptoms running your life, and like you say, in a pattern
Yeah.
way, keep coming up
Yes.
every time something like this happens. You're having these thoughts and you're turning into a negative self-talk.
Yep.
So the downplaying your success starts to become negative self-talk as well, which is of course if you do it long enough, then becomes very detrimental to your own mental health and your own health and well-being in the long term. So these are the symptoms. Just run through them again: feeling inadequacy and self-doubt, to having perfectionist tendencies, avoiding responsibility, fear of judgment of others, and denying your own success. So these are the kind of symptoms of imposter. But so what do we do? How do we deal with this? You're probably wondering right now.
Yep, I'm ready for it.
Well, first of all, what I would say to everybody is sit down and do the exercise of why do I matter?
Oh,
regardless
yeah.
of regardless of any success, any achievements, any job titles. Why do you matter in this world as a person, as a being? Do this journaling exercise of why do you matter?
Oh, that's good.
Who
Yeah.
and who do you matter to?
Yeah.
And that will be a great realization of your own qualities that will not be replaced by anybody else. In a job you can be replaced just like that.
Yeah.
Right? We said that you're only part of the number, you're part of the system and all of
Yeah.
that, which is fine. But they're never going to replace your energy, the things that you bring to this world. And that's what matters. The things that you bring as
Yeah.
your energy, as the person that you are, because
The person you are, yes,
the
and your
fact that you're
energy.
here means is that you are already a miracle.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And I mean, I was joking, I was in a jokey way. I said to Ian, there's no one like you in this world. And it's true. No one
That's
like you
right.
in this
Yes.
world. And
No one.
the
Yeah.
energy that you bring to this podcast and the energy that you guys bring to your work and to the people that you love every day is different to anybody else's. And just acknowledge that, acknowledging these feelings. And
Yeah, and we're all entitled to this as well because you are entitled to it. Chulai said you're a miracle. You're here. We're here. I'm here. Chulai's here. You're here. That's brilliant. That's no accident.
yes.
However you got here, I know. I don't think we're not going unwanted pregnancies and stuff like that. Don't care about any of that. You are here. You're meant to be.
Yes.
That's what I believe.
Exactly. And we're meant to be here. But then connect with that. Why is it that I'm feeling like this in the first place? But to really get yourself out of that unhelpful self-talk area to why do I matter? Who do I matter to? What can I bring to this world that no one else can bring? In fact, what am I bringing to this world that no one else can bring? You probably are already doing things that you're not even aware of, you never even acknowledged. So acknowledge those. And sometimes this imposter syndrome, all these negative self-talk and stuff, is all your brain's way of keeping you safe, as we said before. And your brain will keep you safe in the familiar. Things that you believe that is familiar to you, that is not going to put you out there in the big world to the judgment of others. When you acknowledge that, when you say to your brain, it's okay, I've got this, I'm fine. Because I matter, because now that you've done the exercise, then you can put those unhelpful thoughts aside and focus your attention onto why you matter.
Yeah. If people are sitting there listening, watching at the moment thinking, well, I'm not going to come up with anything, I can't see that I matter. I can't, you do. If you're, I can't say it any more clearly. If you're here, you matter. You are supposed to be here, and you bring stuff, as Chulai has said a couple of times now, that nobody else can bring. We are really unique. And if we don't do certain things, they just don't get done.
That's right.
Because, you can think, somebody will do that, that'll get done, it's all right, but maybe it won't. And maybe it could be something like, visiting somebody, just having a cup of tea with them and brightening up their day. And if you don't do it, it won't happen. Somebody else will go and see them, just things like that, little things, isn't it?
And when you acknowledge your how you feel, when you go through why you are matter, then you can talk to other people that are likely going through the same thing, but not silently. And when you realize you're not alone in this, you're going to find a lot of courage and a lot of comfort in that. Talk to people who are in the same boat as you, who are going through the same things as you. This is not to dwell on your unhelpful thoughts, but just to acknowledge that this exists. People can go through this, but we can also get out of this. So that's how we go through that. Makes sense? Talking to others, just
that all makes sense. Yeah, that's
problem
good.
shared, a problem halved, as they say.
Yeah. I just want to make sure people don't feel that they're outside of this, because if you're here and you're alive, sorry, we're a bit biased against people that can't speak English because we're doing the podcast in English, but not much we can do about that. Other than that, we're welcoming everyone, aren't we? And nobody's outside.
And then you can start little by little celebration. We said celebrating success. If that's something that you're not very good at, you've always found, oh, you know what, that was just one of those things. Why not find a very simple, easy way to celebrate your success? One of my friends, and a colleague, if you like, she celebrates her success. She likes drawing. She likes coloring in. She colors in a whole page of her book when she makes a sale, for example, or when she sells one of her books. That is an activity that gives her joy. That is something she likes doing, and that feels like a celebration to her. It doesn't have to cost anything. It doesn't have to involve other people. It's just you celebrating with yourself and acknowledging to yourself that I've done this and I'm proud of it.
I like that. Because again, that's about somebody being themselves and celebrating in the way that they are, and not. That's perfect.
And then understanding what you're good at, why do I matter, and then finding within that which one of those things that you bring to this world gives you the most joy and pride, and do more of those things. And then you'll find that you no longer need to doubt yourself, because you can enjoy the thing that you're doing, because only you can bring that to this world. And that gives you pleasure. And when there is pleasure, you don't care about what other people think or don't think, or you don't need to worry about their judgments, right?
Absolutely. And you're entitled to it. You're absolutely entitled to what we're just talking about.
And then overcoming perfectionism. Again,
good word.
Accepting that perfect doesn't exist. And if you do a good job in the 70% of it, that's good enough. And then basically inching yourself towards just about good enough versus perfect. And having these high expectations of perfectionism isn't getting you anywhere. It's only causing you more trouble. And look, it's also stopping you putting out there what you're good at, what you're really here to bring. Because of
it's not perfect, I'm not going to do it, and then nothing happens. So that's just not right.
But then also, if you're here to help other people, if you're here to serve other people in some other way, then you're denying them the transformation that they can get by you putting out what's what you're keeping inside because of that perfectionism, whether it's a colleague that really could have solved her problem, or whether it's your manager, it would have really helped her, but you were just keeping it to yourself because you wanted to make it perfect. Perfect doesn't exist. Everybody's perfect is different. And if you really want to be perfect, especially specifically in a work situation, make sure you agree what that perfect looks like before you even set out to do anything. I know in the olden days we used to laugh about what good looks like, whatever, but it is a very important thing to agree on.
Yeah.
If you don't know what good looks like, you're going to keep chasing a good that doesn't exist.
Yeah, no, these things are important. We have laughed at all these little things in the past, and oh yeah, here we go again. But some of them are useful, and some of them are good, and some of them we can use to So yeah.
So yeah, I would just really encourage everyone to do these 5 things to get out of the imposter syndrome, like we said. So doing the exercise of why you matter and who you matter to, and acknowledging these feelings in order to not resist the feeling, acknowledge them, but also start to shift them to why you matter, as opposed to feeling like an imposter. Talk to other people that are around you going through the same thing, not to dwell on it, but just to understand, acknowledge, and accept that this exists, but we can move past this. And then as well, like I said, what else can I do? What else can I do that brings me joy, to give it to other people? You can change that, inch towards what really is helpful, and then understand and know what you're strong about, what brings you joy, and do more of that. And then you get to celebrate more of that success, and then agree what perfect looks like with the people who is expecting you to do a job or whatever, or even within yourself. I will be happy when this is done in this way. And then slowly you can lower the expectations and know when you've done it, it's great. Find a way to celebrate, whether it's a small walk down in the park, whether it's listening to your beautiful music, whatever it is, that you get to decide what that looks like for you. So these are the tips to overcome the imposter syndrome.
That's really great, and that we've covered a lot. There is a lot to think about and hold on to there. I'd suggest people perhaps rewind, listen again, and to those points until it really sinks in. And I'm going to jump in before Chulai today on this particular episode and say this is a good time to remind people to subscribe to this channel and to not miss out on any future, and to have ready access to the stuff that we've already done in the past, because it's not just about listening to today, it's about listening to stuff we've done in the past as well, and there'll be a lot more stuff coming up in the future. So please subscribe to the channel and don't miss out.
Yes, and I encourage everyone to apply what we're saying here to everyday life. Only when we apply and when we embody what we're teaching here, that you get to change your life. Okay, thank you. Please like and subscribe, and speak to you next week.